The containment bay stank of antiseptic and panic. Erick Klay stood just outside the heavy reinforced glass, watching the creature inside pace in slow, menacing circles. 8 limbs, 3 meters tall at the shoulder, and covered in leathery black hide that shimmered slightly under the artificial lighting. Its mouth, if it could be called that, was a vertical slit of cartilage-lined jaws that clicked together with a sound like breaking tree limbs. "That thing is not sedated," muttered Erick, arms crossed, his stance tight. "You said it would be sedated." The alien beside him, a lanky, pale-skinned being with translucent blue ridges along its skull, adjusted the straps of its sterile apron and stepped back. "It was," said Drackle, voice warbling with stress. "But its physiology rejected our compound. We attempted a different mix. It woke up halfway through the surgery prep," finished Erick grimly. He looked from the beast to the alien vet. "And now you're saying you won't go in there." Drackle puffed out his air sacs. "I am saying I cannot. That is not a patient. That is a war beast from the Drenari front. It has killed 10 of my kind during capture alone. I am a veterinarian, not a martyr." Erick tapped the glass once with his knuckle, watching the creature's eyes, 3 of them, 1 low and 2 high, snap toward him. It didn't charge. Instead, it let out a low thrum, vibrating through the floor. "What's its name?" Erick asked suddenly. Drackle hesitated. "It has none." "Designation is Zarn 72, a failed hybrid, decommissioned and scheduled for euthanasia, but the transport crash left it injured. Now the military wants it stabilized before they make another decision. And you won't touch it. I would not survive." Erick exhaled through his nose, the air too clean to carry any real relief. He looked back at the creature. Its flank was torn open along one ribbed segment, oozing something thick and blue. The wound looked deep, possibly infected. It paced again, slower now. "All right," Erick said, pulling his jacket off. "Then I'll go in." Drackle's eyes widened. "You are not trained." "Nope, your species is soft. Thanks for the confidence." Drackle moved in front of the door panel. "You cannot. I will not authorize this." "Then don't authorize it," Erick said, stepping past him and keying in the manual override. "You said it yourself, it needs help, and I've worked with animals before, not alien ones, but instincts are instincts." "It is not an animal, it is a weapon." Erick didn't reply. The door hissed open and the low thrum from the beast deepened. The room was warmer. The creature turned toward him fully now, body low, alert. Erick didn't move fast. He raised both hands and spoke calmly. "Easy, big guy, I'm just here to look at that cut." The creature took a step forward. Erick stopped. It sniffed the air or made a sound that resembled it. Its breathing was heavy, labored. Erick could see the wound leaking. The smell was metallic, sharp. He knelt slowly, keeping his body relaxed. "You don't want to fight," Erick said, voice even. "You're hurt. You probably didn't even ask to be made, just like the rest of us, yeah." The creature stopped. It stared. Erick reached into his belt pouch and pulled out a small scanner. He flicked the screen on and held it out, showing the creature he wasn't hiding anything. The beast didn't lunge. That was a good sign. He moved closer, inch by inch. The scanner beeped softly as it passed over the wound. The internal display flashed fractured ribs, deep tissue damage, possible internal bleeding. He glanced up. The creature's upper eye blinked independently. "All right, Zarn," Erick said softly. "We're gonna need to clean this up, but I'm guessing you're not gonna let anyone near you with a scalpel unless you trust them." He pocketed the scanner and reached into the med kit. A sterile cloth, some saline, and a pain-suppressant patch. Nothing sharp. "You know," he said, holding the cloth out a little, "on Earth we've got dogs. Some are big like you, some are mean. But you treat them right, you earn their trust. And when you do, they'll follow you anywhere." The creature tilted its head. Erick smiled faintly, just a tug at one corner of his mouth. "So, who's a good boy?" The creature froze. Its 3 eyes blinked in unison, then it made a sound low, not hostile, more like a hum. Erick moved closer, slowly. He pressed the cloth to the wound. The creature flinched, muscles tightening, but it didn't strike. He worked quickly, wiping away the gunk. Then he affixed the patch. "See, not so bad." Behind him, the door opened. Drackle stepped in, hesitant. "You are not dead," he said, stunned. "Nope," Erick said, standing slowly. His back hurt from crouching. "He let me treat him." Drackle stepped closer, keeping his hands visible. The creature stared but didn't react. "We can begin surgery if it has accepted you," said Drackle, voice more hopeful now. "Will it allow us to sedate it again?" Erick looked at the creature. "I think he might if I'm here." Drackle hesitated. "You would stay?" "Someone has to keep him calm. The surgery took 3 hours." Erick stayed just outside the sterile field, talking to the creature the entire time. He kept his voice low, soothing, constant. Even when the beast groaned and thrashed during the deeper tissue work, Erick's voice kept it from rising to panic. Afterward, when the creature was bandaged and resting, Erick finally let himself slump against the wall. His legs ached. His throat was dry, but the creature was alive. Drackle approached him with a tablet. "You have been requested to remain as handler." "By who?" "The military. They believe your connection may be useful." Erick looked at the creature. Its breathing had slowed. It was watching him. "I'm not interested in training it to fight," Erick said. "Neither am I," Drackle replied, "but if it listens to you, it may be saved." Erick nodded slowly. "Then I'll help, but on one condition." "Name it." Erick looked at the beast. He thought about the movement of its eyes, the way it had responded to a phrase no one else would have thought to use. "I want to name him," Drackle blinked. "As you wish." Erick stepped forward and knelt again. The creature's eyes followed him. "Your name's Goss now," Erick said. "That sound good to you?" The creature blinked once, then twice. Erick smiled. "Yeah, thought so." He left the bay that night exhausted but alive. His arms ached from tension he hadn't even noticed. As he walked down the corridor toward his assigned quarters, a younger technician jogged up to him, wide-eyed. "Is it true?" the tech asked. "You got it to calm down with just a voice command." "Not a command," Erick said. "Just a little kindness." He didn't wait for further questions. The hallway lights dimmed as he walked. Somewhere behind him, Goss let out a low, rumbling breath that echoed faintly down the corridor. 3 days after the surgery, Erick sat cross-legged just outside the reinforced enclosure, a portable monitor resting against his knee. Goss lay inside, curled tightly, flank rising and falling with slow, labored breaths. Transparent polymer tubing snaked from the overhead unit to the creature's side, delivering a steady drip of antibiotics and fluid replacement. His wound was sealed with a breathable flex membrane, faintly glowing as it adjusted to his cellular rhythms. "Heart rate stable," Erick muttered. He tapped a few icons on the screen. "No fever spike. You're either healing or you're planning something elaborate." Goss didn't move. His upper eye remained half-lidded, still pretending to ignore me. "Classic?" Drackle stood behind the observation panel, arms folded in a way that made him look like he was trying not to be impressed. His lab coat had acquired a fresh tear across the left sleeve, and his lower mandible twitched slightly with every beep from the monitor. "It defecated this morning," he said. "Good morning to you too," Erick replied. "I know what you meant. It's a good sign. Gut motility means his system's recalibrating. You should be thrilled." "I am relieved," Drackle said carefully, "but not thrilled. Thrilled implies optimism." "That would be premature." Erick set the monitor aside and leaned back on his hands. "You know, I never asked what did you do before you joined the Interspecies Medical Corps." Drackle hesitated. "I rehabilitated aquatic grazers on Pthali 5. No kidding." "I heard they scream when they're stressed." "They do. It is a high-pitched keening that causes hemorrhaging in small birds." "Nice." Erick glanced at Goss again. "I had a parrot once that used to swear at my neighbor. Didn't scream, just waited until she was watering her plants, then let loose about her eyebrows. Got me kicked out of 2 apartments." Drackle blinked slowly. "Your species is baffling. Yours wears shoes with no soles. They are filtration pads, still weird." A low rumble came from inside the bay. Erick straightened. Goss was shifting slightly, his outer limb twitching. "That's the first movement I've seen all day," he said, rising to his feet. It may be discomfort, Drackle offered, or boredom. He's been staring at the same wall for hours. Let me in. Drackle stepped forward. Unwise, he has not yet. I won't touch him, just want to talk. The door hissed open half a meter, enough for Erick to slip through. The temperature inside was noticeably higher, humid and faintly metallic. Goss's scent had changed, less acrid, more earthy. He didn't lift his head, but his eyes tracked Erick's steps. Hey, buddy, Erick said gently. You need anything? Water. A change of scenery. The creature's chest expanded with a deep, deliberate breath. Erick knelt by the wall, keeping distance. I brought you something. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, round object wrapped in clear polymer. Inside, a dull orange sphere jiggled slightly. Gel fruit, Erick explained. From Med Bay 2's hydroponics, not toxic to you according to your blood work. Might taste like sadness, but it's got potassium. He placed the fruit on the floor and slid it forward slowly. Goss didn't move. Erick sat back. Back home, he said, we use food to make friends or to apologize, sometimes both. Goss's inner arm uncurled slightly, the claw at its end flexed, then retracted. He didn't take the fruit, but he didn't destroy it either. That's progress, Erick whispered. Outside the bay, Drackle was speaking into a comm unit. Erick caught a few words, something about neural response patterns and adaptive empathy, but he ignored it. Goss was watching him steadily now. You ever seen a sunrise? Erick asked. Not on a screen, real one. I saw one from the Himalayas once. Hiked up at 3 in the morning, nearly froze my kneecaps off. But when the sun broke, man. The sky went from black to indigo to gold in 5 minutes. Whole mountaintop lit up like it was breathing. Goss blinked, slow and deliberate. I don't know what they showed you before, Erick continued. Or what they made you do, but you're not a thing. You're not a tool, you're alive. That means you get to want stuff, even if it's just a nap or a snack. The creature tilted its head slightly. Then, with a laborious motion, it drew the uneaten fruit toward itself and curled one limb loosely around it. Erick grinned, then winced as a muscle in his back protested. You know, if I threw you a ball, I bet you'd bring it back. Might eat it first, but still. The door opened behind him. This time, it was someone new. A tall, slate-skinned alien in a deep crimson uniform stepped in, flanked by 2 smaller attendants in matching gray. Their uniforms bore the insignia of Central Command's Bioethics Review Division. You are Erick Klay, the lead figure asked. Erick didn't stand. Depends, who's asking? I am Inspector Talek. I've been sent to evaluate the viability of continued investment in Subject Goss. He's not a subject. Talek's eyes narrowed. You are not listed as a permanent station medic. Nope, volunteer handler, no salary, no rank, no title. Just a chair, a med kit, and an unwanted pet. Drackle stepped forward. He has formed an effective rapport. The creature has responded well to his presence. Creatures do not determine their own futures, Talek said flatly. We do. Erick stood up slowly. With all due respect, Inspector, you don't know him. You've read a file, you've seen a casualty list, but you haven't sat in here while he tried to heal. Talek approached the glass and peered in. Goss didn't move. He was still curled around the fruit. We've monitored no signs of aggression since the operation, Drackle said. Recovery is proceeding without incident. And when it's recovered, Talek asked, Erick crossed his arms, then we find out what he wants, not what you want from him. Talek turned toward him. You believe it capable of choice. I believe he already made one. He let me help him. Talek studied him for a long moment, then he turned to Drackle. Prepare a behavioral assessment for submission. I want full neural scans, endocrine profiles, and a predictive aggression index. I will require at least 4 days, Drackle said. You have 3, Talek replied and left without another word, the door sealed behind him. Erick let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. His empathy score's gonna tank if they scan him while Talek's in the room, he muttered. Drackle picked at the tear in his sleeve. You are aware that if the aggression index exceeds threshold, execution is automatic. Yeah, Erick said. Which is why we're not letting it exceed anything. He turned back toward Goss. The creature hadn't moved, but his right eye tracked Erick's every step. "You hear that, buddy?" Erick said softly. "You've got 72 hours to prove to them you're more than a threat." Goss made a low, vibrating sound, not loud, not angry, just a hum like a generator warming up. Erick sat back down beside the monitor. "Guess we better get started." Erick's knees cracked audibly as he crouched beside the low prep bench in the observation annex. Two trays sat in front of him, one with diagnostic swabs, the other with a stack of nutrient wafers that looked like someone had pressed oatmeal into bricks and lost interest halfway through. He picked one up, sniffed it, winced, then glanced toward the containment enclosure where Goss lay stretched across the padded floor. "You know," he muttered to no one in particular, "if this ends with me getting mauled over a protein bar, I want it noted that I tried to bring snacks." Drackle, hunched at the adjacent station, adjusted the calibrator on a neural telemetry harness without looking up. "Your dietary supplements have no proven value to his recovery. They're not for recovery, they're a bribe. That is not medical protocol. Neither is giving names to classified hybrids, but here we are." Drackle didn't reply. His elongated fingers moved in practiced motions, tightening the sensors around the curved metal arch. The harness gleamed with polished implants designed to rest across a cranium that didn't technically have a forehead. Erick watched him work for a moment, then reached for a latex sleeve and pulled it over his arm. "Telemetry gear ready? It will be, assuming he doesn't remove it with his teeth." "That's the spirit." Drackle finally looked up. "You are unusually calm for someone preparing to attach an experimental monitor to a creature that once dismembered a transport hull." "Yeah, well, I've had worse Tuesdays." He stood, cradling the harness and a hypo patch between his elbow and ribs, then stepped toward the enclosure controls. The door slid open with a hiss and he stepped inside. The air was still too warm. Goss didn't react immediately. He was lying on his side, limbs slack, breathing slow and even. But his right eye swiveled toward Erick the moment the human crossed into range. "I come bearing gifts," Erick said, holding up the wafer. "I found the least offensive one, smells only slightly like carpet glue." Goss didn't move, but his inner claw twitched once. Erick stepped closer, crouched, and laid the food on a small, flat tray. "It's optional. But if you eat it, I'll assume we're friends. If you throw it, I'll assume you're still thinking about it." He set the telemetry harness beside the tray and unsealed the hypo patch. "Now, here's the not fun part. I need to run a dampener through your spinal crest. Just a mild one, nothing that'll knock you out. It's so you don't get a headache the size of a shuttle when this thing starts reading your thoughts." Goss's breathing changed slower, deeper. Still no movement. "I'll go slow," Erick said, peeling the patch backing. "But if you growl, we're skipping ahead to the part where I pretend I was never here." He stepped around to Goss's dorsal side, carefully avoiding the wound site. The creature's backplates had shifted slightly since the last dressing. Erick could see new tissue forming beneath the biomembrane. He pressed the patch gently between two ridges, just under the base of the third ocular stem. Goss tensed, not violently, more like a coiled spring deciding whether to uncoil. "Easy," Erick murmured. "Just a sticker with ambition." The patch engaged with a soft click. A faint shimmer rippled along its edge as it interfaced with the creature's peripheral nerves. Goss made a low, stuttering exhale, then settled again. "Good, now the crown." He retrieved the telemetry harness and unfolded it slowly. Goss watched, eyes following every motion. Erick held it up, letting the creature see the underside. No needles. It just reads impulse patterns, like a mood ring but with more judgment. Goss made no objection as Erick stepped in and eased the device over the top of his head. The rear nodes aligned against the cranial ridges with a soft, magnetic hum. A few lights blinked green. Erick stepped back. "See, that wasn't so bad. You didn't even try to eat me." From the other side of the glass, Drackle called out, initial readings coming through. "Neural activity is elevated but not erratic. See, he's not angry, just mildly confused." Drackle tapped at his console. There's an anomaly in the anterior cortex, high synchronization with auditory triggers. That's unusual. It means he likes my voice. That is not how cortex function is classified. Agree to disagree. A soft chime rang from deeper in the station. Drackle stiffened and turned toward the corridor. Inspector Talick is returning from his off-site review. He will expect a preliminary behavior model. He's early. He is never late. The rest of us are simply behind. Erick turned back to Goss. Time to impress the bureaucracy. He retrieved a small sensory toy from the prep tray, a low-density sphere that vibrated at irregular intervals and changed color under pressure. Designed for juvenile learning therapy, but it had the bonus of being indestructible. He placed it near Goss's forelimb. "This isn't a trick," he said. "Just play with it or ignore it. I won't judge." Goss didn't move for a full minute. Then, slowly, one claw extended and tapped the sphere. It buzzed faintly and turned a pale green. Goss tapped it again. Blue. Erick glanced toward the glass. "You getting this?" Drackle, for once, looked unsure. "He's responding to a non-instinctive stimulus that's not in his design parameters." "That's the point." The door opened behind Drackle and Talick entered without ceremony. His attendants flanked him, both carrying flat display pads. "Report," Talick said. Drackle stepped forward. "Subject has accepted telemetry. Neural readings are consistent with moderate stimulation. No aggression markers thus far." Talick approached the glass. "And what do you attribute this compliance to?" Erick stood. "I asked nicely." Talick's eyes narrowed. "You maintain this creature is capable of self-direction. He just opted to engage with a toy instead of flattening me. That's a choice." Talick observed Goss for a long moment, then he turned to Drackle. "Model his current state. If the results fall below the threshold, he'll be transferred to long-term observation." Drackle nodded and began the data extraction. Erick remained inside the enclosure, watching Goss. The creature had stopped tapping the sphere but hadn't withdrawn from it either. "Hey," Erick said quietly, "you did good." Goss's middle eye blinked once. An hour later, after telemetry was logged and the patch safely removed, Erick sat on the floor outside the enclosure, sipping from a plastic cup of synth milk. Drackle joined him, crouching stiffly. "The aggression index came in below minimum concern," Drackle said. "Talick has approved continued observation under non-restrictive protocols." Erick raised his cup. "To mild surprises." Drackle inclined his head. "I did not expect it, neither did I." They sat in silence for a while. Inside the enclosure, Goss had curled back into a resting position, forelimbs still loosely draped over the sensory sphere. "You think he understands what happened?" Erick asked. Drackle considered. "Perhaps not in the way we do. But I believe he recognizes safety. That'll do for now." Erick stood and stretched. The lights in the corridor dimmed slightly, signaling the artificial dusk cycle. He looked at Goss one last time. "Get some rest," he said. "You've earned it." Goss didn't reply. But his breathing remained slow, steady. Peaceful. Erick turned and walked down the corridor, shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. No alarms, no containment breaches. Just quiet. Behind him, the creature once built for war lay still, the harmless toy glowing faintly beneath its claw.